Tennessee beats Auburn in one of the most electric games that's ever been in Thompson Bowling Arena, brought to you by Kroger's. But Tennessee and Auburn, was that the high mark for SEC play, Caleb, that we've seen this year?
That's a high mark for college basketball play. And it is a case. And I think here's why I wanted to pose this question or pose this topic, because we talked about this morning. Ever since players started going out of high school and then one and done became part of the game, college basketball, the quality of play, I think it's safe to say for the past 25 years had been declining significantly, hadn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it's just bad. Coaches don't develop players the way they should, and coaches oftentimes get one and dones, and it's just been a big problem. Just across the board, just been a gigantic problem. Last night, it was incredible play on both sides of the court. And there's a reason for that, by the way. Auburn and Tennessee both have 2 to 3 draft picks on their team. Both of them, their multiple draft picks are all juniors or seniors. And this is what's an underrated thing about college basketball, that you watched 2 games last night, not just with NBA talent. We've seen plenty of games in the past with NBA talent. You see that every time you watch Kentucky play Kansas, okay? What you don't see are veteran teams with NBA talent. Usually it's one or the other, because if you're a veteran team, that means you got a bunch of guys that weren't good enough to go to the NBA after their freshman year, meaning they're not going to the NBA, right?
Yes.
That's how it's worked. You are now seeing the NBA, because of their value of shooting and spacing, is changing their model over who they go for beyond those top 5 picks. And they're kind of going for those elite shooters and guys that can stretch the floor. And that comes with development over time, which puts value on teams like Tennessee and puts value on teams like Auburn that do have 2 and 3 year guys. So they have NBA players that have played together, and you watched this last night. Now, here's the real high mark. You're going to start seeing more of this in college basketball with NIL. And I think we talk about college football, but Dave, NIL is going to save college basketball.
I agree.
I think more than anything. And
I'm not just taking the other side for the sake of taking the other side, because this is on the message board, and I believe this is the case too. I believe Ziegler is more important than Adu.
Oh, we're going back to that debate. Okay. I can entertain Ziegler because there's no backup point guard, but I don't necessarily think – I still think the inside presence matters more. I think the inside presence can overcome anything. It allows Tennessee to shoot well from 3.
Gotcha.
So
I didn't mean to sidetrack you, but NIL saving college basketball. Continue on that theme, because I was thinking the very same thing sitting in my seats last night.
Yeah, NIL, I said it was going to save college basketball because Auburn's starting 5 yesterday, every single member of that starting 5 is a junior except Aiden Holloway, who is a freshman. So they have 1 freshman, but they have 1 freshman and 4 juniors. Okay. And then their third best player comes off the bench, and he is Jalen Williams, and he's a senior. So their 5 most important players are all juniors or seniors. Bruce Pearl we talk about positionless basketball. Bruce Pearl has like starterless basketball. It's not a big deal.
Not a big deal if you don't start in a Bruce Pearl system. As we've lost Caleb there for a second, but Tennessee again with the big win. And the question that I have is, do we really have an accurate assessment of Ziegler? Because
did I freeze on you?
Yeah, you froze on me. We got you back. I do want to remind people that portions of the program brought to you by Don Self. Go to donself.net. Customer service still matters. For 40 years, they have built their business on taking care of their customers in the greater Chattanooga area. Call 423-396-2126, 423-396-2126, or go to donself.net. That's donself.net. Customer service matters. Everybody wants the best prices until you got to make those claims, and those are very important. But getting back to NIL, Caleb, there are a lot of mid-range guys. Now, Connect wouldn't be a good example because he wouldn't be able to compete with that type of NBA money if he's a top 5 pick. But there are a lot of guys, like you mentioned at Auburn, that might be borderline first round. If you get the second round of the NBA, you don't even get a contract. Those guys could easily be wooed to return to college. I don't think there's any question about that for a reasonable amount of money. And really, money spent, they could have a bigger impact than any football player because you have to spend $2 million for an elite quarterback. If you could have Dalton Connect back, well, that's a bad example because he's too good. But if you could have a mid-level guy back for another year that makes you an older team and more mature for $1 million, that would be a huge get. I don't know how many schools are going to spend that much money on basketball because it's not the revenue generator that football is, but we shall see.
But who's more valuable? Who's more valuable? Particularly, okay, we're Tennessee. You're Tennessee. Pretend you're Tennessee. Theoretically, historically, a superstar in basketball is more valuable than a superstar in football, right?
Yes.
However, this day and age in football, with Josh Heupel's system, is a generational quarterback more valuable or a generational basketball player more valuable? I think it's the quarterback.
Yeah, I would say that. I think, somebody that covers Duke might argue that point. What would Duke pay for another Christian Laettner run? Probably an endless amount of money. You'd have doctors coming out of the woodwork to pay for that, But yeah, I mean, what's the type of player that comes back for another year because of NIL money? It's an Adu type guy. It's a Joseph Adu type guy.
Grant Williams from back in the day would have come back for it. Lower first round.
Williams definitely would have. Very good one. Very good one. I look at Tennessee and what they have going forward, and we're going to get to some football here in a second, but you look at the rest of the schedule, there's nobody in the nation that has a tougher last month of the schedule than Tennessee, because it'll be Alabama, at South Carolina, and then home against Kentucky. When you include Auburn, those are all teams ranked in the top 25. If they go 3-1 in this run, which now they're 1-0, is that a monumental success?
Yes, that's a huge success. I think that's what they need to do if they want to win the SEC. I think between Alabama and South Carolina, it's more important to beat South Carolina, obviously, because you don't want to get swept by South Carolina. And I don't see now again, Alabama is tied with Tennessee for first in the East. So it really sucks for Tennessee that they have to play both of these teams on the road. But Alabama does have to visit Florida, who has all of a sudden gotten very good. I don't know if you know that. They are a very dangerous team under Mike White now. And so you could theoretically lose to Alabama and still win the SEC. But quite honestly, you have to win both of these games to win the SEC. The one you could afford to lose is Kentucky, but Kentucky's at home, and you don't want to lose at home to Kentucky. But
you don't want to lose at home to Kentucky. I think either of the road games is understandable, especially the South Carolina game. I think that is understandable.
But if you lose either of them, you're not winning the SEC.
Well, they might not win the SEC. I mean,
try to win.
I mean, how many teams would go 4-0 through this? Would Purdue?
Hey, I got a question, Dave. Because you and I both agree the selection committee doesn't give a rat's what about the conference tournament.
Yeah. Yes, agreed.
And also, if you win the SEC regular season title, I don't think you care about the conference tournament because you still get to hang a banner for the regular season, right? And hanging the banner is what matters.
Yes.
So if you beat Alabama and South Carolina, if you win your next two, you've clinched the SEC. You've clinched the regular season. They're both on the road. It's Kentucky, but do you just rest your starters at home against Kentucky?
No, you're into this resting too much. You got to be competitive. Come on.
Championships matter. Rest your starters.
I want to win every night. With the NFL.
Oh, even the conference tournament, even the SEC tournament.
Hold on. The end of the NFL is the rare exception. And in every other sport, I want to win every time.
I don't know. Do you remember that time? I do know distinctly, and you probably remember this, where your Yankees purposely lost a game to cost the Red Sox a shot at the wild card about 12, 13 years ago.
I don't remember that, but that's pretty good. And we've had Ron Slay on this program. We'll have him tomorrow, former Vol with the SEC Network. And he kind of admitted that they went to the SEC tournament not really thinking much about it, that they were focused more in the NCAA tournament. Not that they threw it or anything. He didn't say that. But
I don't think you don't. There's a difference between throwing it and not having to play hard. And it's called playing your backups. Get your walk-on some experience, man.
Okay, I'm not going to go down that road. And here's the other thing. The selection committee, if you did that, might actually ding you and make you a 2 seed instead of
Who cares? Who cares? 2-1 is no different. This is the stupidest, most arbitrary thing that we do.
That there's some truth to that, but I would like to see a 1 seed for the first time in school history. It would be a monumental thing, right? Does nothing for you. It guarantees you a win in the first round. There's only been 1 16 beat a 1. There's been about 5 instances of a 15 beating a 2.
Call me when the number 1 seed gets to play the first weekend at home. That's what they should be doing. That should be the reward.
Ooh, that's hot sauce. I like that.